On this new series that I'm loving so far, on this Becoming series, and y'all, we are getting down to the most gritty for Becoming series. This is I'm your host, Daniellejmartin of Behind the Spotlight Podcast. Now, over the next couple of weeks, I'm inviting you to tune into a couple of conversations that I'll be having with some of my close friends who are also true believers and community influencers.
I will ask him for something, he will give it to me, but it's not how I thought it would look.
Just because you think that you deserve something does not mean that you deserve it in that season.
The skills that you have that nobody else has, your perspective, the lens that you have, those things are your best thing.
People always say, like, when you know better, you do better. But why is it that when you know better, you still don't do better? Are you really becoming wiser? Now, on this new series called Becoming, we're going to be diving into a variety of topics that's going to empower you and inspire you to become the better version of yourself.
That's what it is, because you're stepping into the unknown. You're stepping into unfamiliar territory. So when you're growing and when you're evolving and when you're changing, you're going to be faced with things that you've never been faced with.
What God is calling you to do doesn't make sense. It makes miracles.
That you are the head and not the tail, above and not beneath.
Now, if you find that this conversation is serving you, then I encourage you to share it with someone else. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media platforms. Now, open up your minds and be ready to be transformed. Hey guys, it's your host, Daniellejmartin on Behind the Spotlight Podcast. We're back with another episode on how to learn to become the better version of yourself. This week, we are focusing on overcoming your own thoughts. It's going to get pretty deep. I'm super excited to bring the guest that I have today. Anthony Blanco is joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So it's a wonderful Wednesday.
I'm excited. So Anthony is a business and life coach. He has been coaching professional services and business for more than 20 years. Okay, lots of experience. And he finds personal satisfaction in helping business owners, leaders, and team find their significance and freedom and create an impact. And we're definitely going to touch on how he's impacted my life as well. But of course, his passion is engaging people in their vision for their life and business and helping them pursue that vision. Now, he also helps business owners and leadership teams dream big and set achievable goals while equipping them with tools to accomplish those goals. He also loves to be a lifelong learner who loves to teach. And also, check this out, he's a triathlete. Okay, this man can go and do many things, and we'll touch on that as well. And then he's also been awarded Global Coach of the Year twice in the past 4 years out of 1,000 plus coaches in 76 countries. Lots to do. Lots of stuff.
Yes.
Gosh.
Yes.
How do you do it all? How do you maintain?
It's funny. I had somebody actually asked me that question a couple weeks ago. And I said, I am very intentional with my calendar.
Yeah.
So everything is very intentionally done. If you listen to all kinds of different people and read all these books, they always talk about scheduling. Mm-hmm. And so whatever you say you want to do, you've got to schedule it to get it done. So that's what definitely. I do. I am a king of my schedule.
Wow. Okay, so you're not only a business coach, but you're a triathlete. For those who don't even know what that is, explain, please.
So that's swim, bike, run. Mm-hmm. I got an itch. I don't even know how long ago it was now. Years ago, I was doing this program, so everybody's probably heard of it. It's an old one now, but it's called Insanity.
I remember Insanity.
Yeah, that was that was Sean T's first beach body program. I think he had some dance ones too, but I couldn't quite get my hips to adjust to that. So I did Insanity, and his premise was, and he said, if you do this program, you can go do anything. So I did Insanity, and when I say I did Insanity, like I did it to the T, exactly how the program prescribed.
Right.
And at the end of that program, I went and did my first triathlon. So I had no swimming prep, no bike prep, no run prep. I just did Insanity for 60 days and then did the first triathlon. Yep.
Dang.
Yeah.
You're pretty bad.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the right way to look at it, or somebody that's just like not smart enough to figure out how to slow down. So, but with that comes different kinds of fun things, injuries and back issues and hamstring issues and all that kind of stuff. But just keep on rolling.
Are you going to be competing like anytime soon?
Not in a triathlon.
Yeah.
I have like athletic ADD. So I tend to switch to different things.
Right.
So the last triathlon that I had done, that was a long one, was an Ironman. So that was over 140 miles. So that was the I can't remember now. It's like 2.2 mile swim and like a 120 mile bike ride and then a marathon. So that was the last triathlon that I did that was at that distance. But then since I did it, I figured, well, I could just do it again. So why would I want to do it again?
Right.
So now I'm preparing for an ultramarathon. So that's an ultramarathon. So that's anything technically that's over 26.2 miles. So I'm going to run 50 miles and I'm going to do that. It's on my calendar and scheduled for May 1st.
That's impressive. Okay, so Anthony has inspired me ever since I've met him. I've thought like running a half marathon was pretty impressive. I'm like, I have made life. I think I've achieved all the goals in my life. But then like hearing all the things that you talk about, I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know if I could do that. But it's very impressive and inspiring. So that's what I love about you. But most importantly, so I have Anthony here because he's not only my nutritional coach, but definitely my personal coach, a person that has motivated me, inspired me to do this podcast today. So I chose you for this episode, Overcoming Your Own Thoughts, because a lot of us stay in our own heads, right? Me included. And so I'm excited to talk about this and dive into how people can really understand that we can take control of our own thoughts. Yes. Like we have the power to do that.
Absolutely.
And so it's crazy because Michael and I were talking even last night about just, do you think that we create negative thoughts?
Yes, absolutely.
And dive in a little bit deeper about that.
Sure. So there is what I like to call like the educational iceberg. And so the educational iceberg, at the very top of the iceberg, you have like school, right? School and all the systems of school. Below the surface that makes the biggest impact is everything that's around us, okay? So it's what you listen to, it's who you talk to, it's what you read, it's what you spend your time doing. Those are all the things that create either positive thoughts or negative thoughts. So, and I've been looking for the statistics. I would love to find it. But the average American spends 4.5 to 5 hours of video watching or screen watching a day. And that's just like being entertained on the thing. Yeah. And I would be curious, of the things that people are watching, what percentage is all negative based, which means, is it about murder? Is it about backstabbing? Is it about deceit? I mean, because I don't watch the programming like that, but what I see like different things or what people talk about, it seems to be all about like that stuff. Right. So if I'm locked in and paying attention to all those things all the time, that's what I'm reading. I'm looking at gossip and all that kind of stuff, and I'm having negative conversations with people. Then when I wake up first thing in the morning, my head is going to be negative, right? I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm going to see everything that I'm not, right?
That's good.
And so even when we look at like social media, whether it's Instagram or the Snapchat and all those other things.
All the social media platforms.
All those things. Like a lot of it is, I'd really like to see people be authentic and show up authentic on those things, right? Because what ends up happening is we see a lot of people, they're watching people and then they become mirrors of those people they're watching. So we have a bunch of folks out there living an unauthentic life, which then goes into leading to anxiety, depression, and they just get all freaked out. Because I've had people say, well, I can't even go to the grocery store unless I have my makeup on, right?
Yeah.
Well, why not? Throw on a ball cap, head out the door. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. And that's real.
Yeah, we start to live that life, and that's where our negative thoughts come from, right? It's what we say to ourselves when we're by ourselves, and it's the environment that pushes that stuff into our head. And if you can control your environment, you can control your thoughts.
Okay, so we're already like 10 minutes in, dropping gems already. So you said a lot of things, right? So you said like it's what you listen to, it's what you are speaking to yourself. And I think that a lot of people, including me, I was at this point in my life where I wasn't speaking to myself at all, right? So I would allow the world, the outside, tell me who I am, not knowing like who I was.
That's right.
And so I even love that you said people don't know how to show up authentic. And I remember when we were planning this podcast, I was telling Anthony, I was like, I can't because I need this and I need this and I need this and I need to figure out like, you know, when I want it to be perfect. I was trying to wait for perfectness. Like I wanted to wait until I felt ready.
Right.
And you're like, well, if you wait until you're ready, you're never going to be ready. Right. And so, learning how to do that, even learning how to do this authentic was something that's like, find beauty in that. Like find beauty in knowing that like who you are is beautiful.
Yep. Yeah.
And understand that like people want the authentic you. People want like when you just come in and you just like mess up, right? They don't want you to be perfect because perfect is boring, is what you told me.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, that's
People
true.
will love you in your lowlights.
Yeah.
Right? That's where you're relatable. So if you're not relatable, then how can you make the impact in the people around you and in the world, more or less, if you try to show this perfect image? Mm-hmm. And then again, that's not just social media, but that's just even in yourself.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, admitting that we've made mistakes, but not harboring on those mistakes is a huge deal. So it's, what did we learn from those things? I mean, a big mistake that I made when Aiden was probably only like 3 years old. Now he's about to be 18. Maybe he's older than 3, like 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know. But he was a late bedwetter like I was, right? So what ended up happening is one night I was frustrated, and he got up, he didn't go to the restroom, he was all wet again, I had to go in there and change all the sheets. And I told him, while he is already frustrated and he's crying and I'm mad, and I yell at him at like 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, you quit acting like a baby. And I'm like, and I went to bed and I felt like the smallest person.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
So we all make mistakes, but what do we learn from that mistake, right? I learned that life and death are in the power of the tongue, right? So, yep, that's the Bible. And so we can either build people up, which is edification, or we can tear them down.
Definitely.
And a lot of times the reason why people tear others down or tear situations down or whatever it is because how they feel about themselves. So there's a quote that says, either you can build a taller building or you can tear other buildings down. And so I'm always talking to our kiddos and the people I'm around. I'm like, you build a taller building floor by floor. Yeah. Quit trying to tear other people's buildings around you.
That's good. And when you talk about even to like what you put into your mind, so I'm the type of person where I don't like scary movies, right? Michael loves scary movies, and it's a little annoying because it's like, why are we putting this stuff in our mind? But I also am learning that it's what you choose to believe is real.
Right.
And so, like for me, like before we go to sleep, like I have to put on something that's like mindless. Like my favorite TV show when I was little was like Girlfriends. I don't know if many people even know that show, but it's like, oh my gosh, we got to catch up on the culture. Okay, so Girlfriends, it's like many people know Girlfriends is like the 4 Black women who basically revolve their lives around like their relationships and marriage and things like that. But it's a very like mindless show. And that or Grey's Anatomy. Okay, you know what Grey's Anatomy is. Okay. So I can go to sleep with those shows in my mind, but I can't go to sleep. Like my mom likes to go to sleep with what is it, Law and Order on. Like what? Like that stuff is a little dark. You know what I mean? And so I just truly believe that like you have to be really mindful of like what you are putting into your mind. And you have also encouraged me to dive into books, right? Like even I can't even remember the last time like I was driving in the car and I was putting the radio on. Like I'm always constantly pouring, personal motivation, personal development. And so for you, being a personal coach, like what can you encourage other people to change their mindset on? Like when it comes to just doing things mindless, like maybe like instead of like looking at your phone, you could be, pouring into audiobooks. You could be listening to YouTube when you're working out, right? I can't even work out with like music anymore. Right. Like I can't. Like I'm listening to a sermon. I'm listening to Miles Monroe, like just anything that's like pouring into me. Right. And so can you just like dive into why it's so important for people to just pay attention to what they're pouring into themselves?
Sure. Well, that's like setting your internal compass, right? So what you focus on, you will become. So your thoughts will become things. And I had a friend that I had coached a while back ago, and she was watching this thing called War of the Roses before she was going into work, which was all about trying to catch people how to cheat on people. Like it was just, and so she would go to work and then she was thinking that all these people were like saying these things or what they're thinking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like we got to totally change the way that you think by changing what you put into your mind. Right. Yeah. So the way that it works is that we go through school and we have mentors and teachers, right? Mm-hmm. So we go through school typically. Some of us will go on to college and masters and doctors and all the other kinds of stuff that's out there. The issue is that they think school is ended, but we never want to mistake that education and school are the same thing. They're not, right? Education can happen inside of school, but education is for life. Mm-hmm. And so after school, when we just go and we are passive about learning, that means what you said earlier is that the world is going to teach us their view of what we should think. Right. Right? Because school tells us they tell us what to think, but they don't teach us how to think. Yeah. Right. So we have to get the right mentors and teachers to teach us how to think, and that's education. People are like, well, I don't go to school anymore, or I don't have education anymore. I said, yes, you do.
Finish college anymore.
Right. I'm like, why? You are being educated every single day. You're being educated in the morning by the news. You're being educated when you get home. You're being educated by conversations. And so they choose poor mentors and teachers. And so when people ask me, what should I listen to? I don't give them, they say, what's your favorite book? And it's a hard answer for me because I have read many, 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 many books. And so my question back to them is, what are you working on? So one of the company that I'm working with, the COO, she just said, do you have any books on ego? Yes. So I gave her a book on ego. Somebody says, well, I'm working on how to think better about my life. Well, I've got this book over here. But I can't just tell somebody, here's a bunch of books to go listen to because it might not be applicable to where they need to be, whether it's Audible, physical book, Kindle, whatever needs to happen. But their mentor and teachers become those Audible books, become those books, become the programming that they're putting in their mind through TV or whatever's they're watching. People are like, we don't watch TV anymore. We watch Hulu and Netflix. I'm like, it's the same thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I don't watch TV. Yeah, you do. You watch it. You watch it on your iPad or your phone.
Streaming services.
You're watching streaming services.
Yeah, literally. And then even just you watching social media, TikTok nowadays. Yeah. Oh my God, like that's just spending hours and hours on TikTok, and like you're telling yourself, what you are not or what you like want to be eventually. Mm-hmm. And like sometimes like you start to like depict or rip apart the things that make you you. And it's crazy that social media does that to us, but it does. Does it affect you in that way at all?
No, because I don't dip. Mm-hmm. So what happens is we become consumers of other people's views. Right? And we can't be creators of our own if we're so consumed by everything else that's going around us. Mm. Right? So my son, I monitor his screen time. I don't tell him what he can and can't do. I just monitor his screen time. Yeah, and about 3 weeks ago, I said, hey, you're spending about an hour and 22 minutes on TikTok. And he goes, oh, I hadn't noticed. And I said, and I see that you first logged in he's getting up in the morning. So I see you first logged in at like 4:15 in the morning and you watched 22 minutes of TikTok before you even got to like 4:45. I said, what is TikTok teaching you? I don't even know what I watched. It doesn't matter if he doesn't remember what he watched. Right. What matters is he took in 30 second to 1 minute or to 3 minute, whatever those intervals is of programming his mind. And that's the key state when we're first awake that is our key state learning time. So he didn't even remember what he watched, but he's been programmed. Yeah. So what did he do? I didn't tell him what he could and couldn't do because as a coach, I ask questions and empower people to make new decisions. So he came up to me 2 weeks ago and he said, I am deleting TikTok off my phone. So 4 days ago, he deleted TikTok off his phone and he's doing that for 90 days.
Wow. And he decided to do that.
And he decided, I didn't tell him what to do. Didn't even ask him what it would look like to stop it for 90 days. I just asked him questions of awareness.
But Anthony, Anthony has this thing where it's like he'll ask questions and it's a little intimidating. And it's kind of like, in a sense of like, it's like my dad asking me something, like, oh my gosh, did I get in trouble type thing? Like do you realize you have that persona on people?
I just think things and I say or ask questions.
It's like one of those friends that people try to avoid because they know that they're right. Right. And so I think one time there was a time where I think you were asking me something and I was like avoiding him for a while because I wasn't ready to like answer the question yet. And so I think that there's a lot of people out there that have, you know, friends or people in their circle that's like, I don't want to talk to you because I know you're right and I'm not ready to address you right now, you know? And so I think that's interesting. But what I love the most is that you, like, I wouldn't say, people may think that like what you do with your kids is controlling, but I love what you and Evie do with like, you know, monitoring is really what you guys are doing. Like making sure that they are being very careful with what they're consuming, especially at this time and age.
Yep.
And I think one time I came over and you guys was just, you know, I don't know how you really have it in your household as far as like, do they borrow your phones? Do they have their own phones? Do they put them up? But it's like, I think it's really important around this time that you are very cautious of what your children are, you know, getting poured into. Yeah. And I think that's very important. But even going into like, what keeps people stuck in the same mindset that doesn't produce results?
They don't take different actions. That's that quote that everybody said for, you know, a long time is, what's the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Yeah. Whether people are trying to make a life change, a diet change, a business change, or whatever it may be, and I'll ask them about their daily habits, and their daily habits haven't changed. So you are the accumulation of your daily habits and thoughts, right? So how are they thinking differently? So if somebody tells me that they want to make a change, and then I say, well, what would that change look like? What do you think you would need to do? What would that type of person, what would they be doing in action? What would they be reading? What would they listen to? Who would they hang out with? What would they be eating?
Right.
And I'm asking all these different questions. And then they say, okay, I'm going to do those things. They said, okay, when are you going to do them? I don't know. Okay, well, what would it look like if you wrote them down? Okay, I need to write them down. And then what I'll do is I'll follow up in a week or two and say, okay, so how's it? Tell me how it go. How's it going? Yeah, well, you know, I'm just not getting the results I want. Well, tell me how your daily structure is going.
Right.
Yeah, I hadn't done that
break
yet.
It down.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. And those are those, you know, you have to be really careful as somebody that is a coach or a friend. And I always have to ask, like, are you a coach? Do you want me to be a coach or do you want me to be a friend? Because your friend Anthony's going to nod and go like this, right? He's just going to nod up and down, right? But Coach Anthony's going to ask questions, because my heart wants people to get what they want for their lives, as long as it's moral and ethically okay. Right?
I'm like, we're not trying to drink killers out here.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it's just like really understanding to break down and write down like what you're doing, right? And like even yesterday we had a financial class and they were asking us basically like looking at your finances. And I really didn't start doing that until, you know, Anthony was kind of helping me realize like how much are you spending on food and this. And it's like, well, I haven't looked at that yet. Well, you know, for a week, just like keep track of your spending. And for me, that was very scary because I was very mindless about finances. And it's something that I'm working on, and I'm realizing that what you are trying to avoid is what you actually really need to approach, right? And the things that people are like when you say, oh, I'm not seeing any results or I'm unhappy, right? I think what really causes like unhappiness? Do you think it's a mindset thing?
Yeah. Number one is we can't look for externally for things to make us happy. Because all that stuff is external and can be taken away.
Yeah.
Right? So when I'm working with people, let's say that somebody's even working on a physical result for their body. And whether it's a guy or a gal, and let's say they want to get totally ripped. And they're in their mind is this physical body is an event, right? In their minds. Well, let's say that they tear a bicep while they're working on this thing, right? Then what ends up happening is they gain 30 pounds because they tear a bicep. Yeah. Because they didn't change their mind. They were just deciding that there was an event and this physical look that they wanted to get. Mm-hmm. Kind of like this 75 hard that everybody's doing here.
It's like this trend now all of a sudden.
Yeah, like, and it's great. I think it's not a diet. People even like think it's a diet. It's not a diet. It's definitely a mental focus, disciplined, structured thing that is fantastic.
I said I would try it when I'm mentally ready.
Yeah, it's hard. And what I always ask people, I'm like, but what ends up happening is people stop the 75 hard and they haven't decided to make a lifestyle change. So what ends up happening?
They just go back to
the results and they go back because they didn't change their identity of who the person they want to become.
They just did it for like a challenge. Like, oh, this is just something we're doing temporarily.
That's right. And they'll, take all their photos and all their stuff, their results photos. And it'd be funny to say, okay, now throw me your result photos like 90 days after that photo.
Right. Oh, that's good.
Right. That's where the rubber meets the road is we want to build lasting change in people. And in order to build lasting change and in what we do, we have in our actions, we have to build the lasting change in our minds.
Yeah. It's like taking I always hear this saying, like, once you see, you can't unsee.
Correct.
Right? And so it's like once you have the information in your hands, you are now responsible to do something with that information. And so I think now being surrounded with certain people, I literally had to tell myself, okay, Danielle, you are surrounded by powerful, different individuals. And it was like, I have you in my ear, I have Michael in my ear, I have other people that's like challenging me to become this better version of myself, where it is literally stretching and getting rid of the old version of me, which is very challenging, right? Because it's a daily decision, it's a daily habit that you have to decide every day, what am I going to do differently, right? And so I think what I love about your whole idea and your whole genre of coaching is that you are very graceful when it comes to helping, your clients and making sure that they understand that every day is going to be a hard decision, but it's okay if you mess up. It's going to be okay. Just don't stay there. Yeah.
I always tell people there's a pattern of either doing or not doing. Right. So, and I always like to use my family as an example, but like Aiden, he's got his 90-day goal set up. And he told me what his routine's going to be. And then he slept in yesterday. And then he slept in again today. And he's supposed to be getting up at 3:30. And he has been for like a month. He's been most of the time, about 85% of the time, he's getting up at 3:30 to go to the gym so he can focus on other activities after school.
Right.
And I ask him all the time, are you in a pattern of doing something or not doing something? That's all I ask him. I don't answer for him. I don't even wait for him to answer. I just want him to be thinking about, are you in the pattern of doing something or not doing something? And then he says, well, I'm going to really follow it on Monday. Hey, great. So be like the rest of the 95% of Americans that are going to start a thing on Monday, right? Magical Monday.
That's Monday. When we begin. We're going to wait till Monday.
That's when not Sunday? That's why we re-begin our life on Mondays, like all the time.
Yeah.
And, that's the lessons that I build into him and our kids and then other people is like, you start today, like you start tomorrow. Forget about Monday, right?
I literally have you in my head all the time. Like, why do I need to wait until
the
beginning of the week?
Yeah, go. Well, I mean, you look at it from everything. We are so capable of so much more. So I got this buddy named JD. And years ago, he asked me, he said, how long do you think it would take me to be able to run a half marathon? I said, when you decide to. Now, keep in mind, JD has never had any training. Okay, so he's never had any run training at all, period. We were just working out at the Great Life, getting our muscles big.
Oh my
gosh. I said, well, when you decide, he's like, so you think I can just run a marathon in 2 weeks if I decide to? And I said, absolutely, let's go.
Definitely.
And so we met at Shunga.
Whatever you set your mind to.
And we ran a half marathon.
That day?
That day, with no prep, no running. We didn't do anything besides show up and run it.
Did he stop at all?
Of course he stopped, but who cares?
Yeah.
Right? Because what ended up happening is he ran 11.1 miles without stopping, when he had never run before. And then he was run a half a mile, then a quarter mile, and then he had to run like 10 feet. But guess what he did?
He kept going.
He kept going, and he finished. Right? 13.1 miles, and he finished, and he proved to himself that he's more capable of anything he decides to do. Yeah. And so many of us will make all kinds of excuses for what we can't do because we're scared to step out into that growth zone.
Yes. It makes us uncomfortable.
It makes us uncomfortable.
But I'm learning to find beauty in the uncomfortable, because I think that there's a lot of growth there. And even just doing the things you're not comfortable with, it's like people can sit here and depict all the things that they want to change, because that's me. I'm like, I will pick apart everything before I see the good in it. And it's like, why do we naturally as humans go to negative thoughts first than looking at positive things?
Because that's what we watch. That's what we pay attention to. And that might have been who our parents were. They go back to mentors and teachers.
Yeah.
What is the environment that you're living in? Yeah. What is the environment that you came from? And then you start to see where you have become inside those things.
Yes.
And you got to, so it always used to irritate me. So Evie and I have been going to leadership. I mean, just to give you an example, Evie and I over the last 11 years have been to 134 leadership conferences. Okay. So people would be like, well, you go to these leadership conferences and they brainwash you. I'm like, I hope so.
What?
I hope so. I hope they brainwash me. Yeah,
I've
because
never heard of that.
because it's positive stuff. Like,
Okay.
I mean, you listen to Tony Robbins and people are like, oh, you know, that's kind of like wacky, and they get all excited and they rub each other and they stand on chairs and scream. It's just weird, right?
Yeah.
But what Tony Robbins is even trying to do is trying to reset your mind, right? To get you out of your comfort zone, to think differently about how you think.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is people, when your car is dirty, what do you do with it?
Go wash it.
Yeah, when your pants are dirty, what do you do with it?
Wash it.
You have a dirty dog, what do you do with it?
Wash it. Well, I take him to the groomer.
Right, yeah, but what do you do?
Yeah,
The
he
groomer
gets a
washes
wash.
it, yep. Right, so we wash all the things that are dirty, but yet when we think about brainwashing our own minds, it has
Oh
a
my
negative
God.
connotation.
That's
Right?
good. Yeah.
So we have to, and it's daily, it's weekly. I mean, you want to come into my house and watch what my family does? We're constantly washing like 472 socks, right? So we're washing every day. In the same way that if you're passive with your mind, then the world will get in there.
Right.
Everything will get in there, the environment. So you have to be not passive. You have to be active with what you're fueling with your brain, mental nutrition.
That's good. Okay, Anthony, we want to know a little bit more about you. Okay. So you have given us probably like 30 minutes of helping other people overcome their negative thoughts. When was a time where, or if there was ever a time where you had to overcome a negative thought, what was it?
Lots of negative thoughts. Yeah, just because I talk about how to do it. And so there's this thing that I use, is kind of the way that I think. So there are circumstances either that you make up in your mind, the story that you tell yourself, or real circumstances, okay? And so you can either build what's called like a red light story, or you can build a green light story, right? So the circumstance remains the same, and then you say, well, how do I feel about this? And then you work down the side over here, the left side. How do I feel? What do I think? What are my actions inside this? Well, what you can do is you can take the inverse of those things and you can turn it into a green light story, right? So times that I've had to do that. So Evie and I have been to our last like $500
Yes.
2 times.
I
Right?
remember this story.
Yep. So one time, the negative story was, I partnered with some friends in a financial business. The guy that we're sending all the business through had a quintuple bypass surgery, so he had to claim short-term disability, so we weren't able to send him business. So I went out without income. Evie's not working. We hadn't started our nutrition coaching business yet, so we had no supplemental income besides what I was doing. And so the negative thoughts are, what am I doing wrong? Why is this happening to me? I'm not good enough. Why don't people like me? Because I need them to do investments. I need them to do life insurance, annuities, mutual funds, all this stuff, and nobody's doing anything with that. When instead of all these, allowing the world and allowing my mind to dictate why everything's happening to me, I had to claim ownership, responsibility, and accountability. What can I do differently? What do people like about me? How can I help them best? How can I create value in their lives? How is this situation creating value in my life? Right? So what am I learning through this instead of what's being done to me? And that's where most people play the victim role as opposed to the victor role. But when you think like a victor, you're going to think about how this resistance, we go to the gym and we lift weights, right? And we get soreness and it's exhausting and tiring, but we go. But yet with our life and our mental activities, like we try to avoid resistance.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. So we try to avoid the mental gym.
Yeah.
And so when we start thinking that any kind of circumstance that pops up or knocks us off our tilt or whatever it may be, we have to think, what mental weight am I lifting? Because I stepped into this life, and I chose to follow this life, and this is back when I was doing the financial planning stuff. How am I going to lift this? And so we were able to overcome that. Negative thoughts where when Evie and I stepped out to do our nutrition business full time, again, our income was very, very low at that time, but we were so certain on what we wanted to create in our life and what we wanted to create in others' lives that it helped us through that. But still, the worry, the doubt, the anxiety, the depression, which I had depression and I didn't know it at that time. I didn't know it because I didn't look for depression. I wasn't Googling depression. I wasn't YouTubing depression. I wasn't talking to people about depression.
So how did you know you had depression?
Because of all of what I've read and learned since then.
Gotcha.
And what other people explain. So like always wanting to sleep, didn't want to be around anybody. I felt like I was fake in front of people. Yeah, so isolate all the stuff. But what I did do during that time period, it was the largest time period of growth. I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I would listen to Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Stephen Furtick, a couple of other people, but I wasn't just listening. Right. I would listen and write, and I would journal for at least 4 to 5 hours before I started my day. Because the amount of negative energy and negative thoughts that I had in my head were consuming me to where all I wanted to do was sleep. And if I could just sleep, then I wouldn't think about all the stuff that I didn't want to think about. I didn't want to think about not being able to buy groceries for the kids. I didn't want to think about telling Evie that we couldn't go do something. I didn't want to think about not being able to take the kiddos to Sonic. I didn't want to think about that stuff.
So you would avoid it.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've been like rambling so much. I'm like, hopefully you guys are taking all of this in, because trying to write this down. So how to overcome your negative thoughts is, you mentioned ownership.
Yep.
Responsibility.
Yep. And accountability.
Right. And looking at it from a different perspective. I'm learning more and more that, like, as you grow, it is literally all about your perspective on things. Absolutely. Right? And so a lot of people sometimes, like, even nowadays, sometimes people don't understand the decisions you make. And sometimes I'm also trying to get me to understand that it's not for people to understand. Like, my life and my decisions that I make are not for you to understand, as long as I understand them.
Right.
Would you disagree?
No, I would just, if somebody ever asks me, I'm thinking about these things or making these decisions, and they say, what are your thoughts? And I would say, here's questions I have.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
That's how I've always followed up with you. You'd say, here's what I'm thinking. What are you thinking? Or what would you tell me? And I'm like, no, here's the questions I have.
Yeah, here are the questions to make me understand, or if what I'm thinking is logical or makes sense. Right? Because we're not saying, like, go out and do whatever you want. But, like, if you are taking ownership, responsibility, and accountability, you would start to look at your life a little bit differently. And going back to perspective, I think that sometimes people may not understand, like, why are you still there? Or why are you, when are you moving on? Like, are you not going to be going to a bigger market or anything like that? And I think when you go back and you talk about, you and Evie opening up your nutritional shop, right? And you did it out of faith and understanding your purpose. Well, when you understand your purpose, it's not going to make sense to everyone.
Yeah.
And so I just really think that I'm a firm believer that if you know that God told you something, and you know that he told you, not like something that you created in your mind and, like, maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but if he really told you something, then, like, follow through with that and stay with that, and understand that if he told you, then he will give you the resources and the people around you to support that decision. Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people that the main person, the main entity is God, is who I am accountable to.
Yes.
Right? So I've got to live the life that he's given me. Anything less is me not being a good steward with him giving me the gifts that he's given me.
Yes.
And if I go live life small, working, doing something that I shouldn't be doing because it's comfortable, then essentially I'm not living by faith in the plan that he's designed for me.
Would you say now that, okay, you're full with so much knowledge, so much wisdom, and books and people that are surrounding, which, by the way, he mentioned a lot of people, okay? Jim Rohn, Stephen Furtick,
Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Darren Hardy. Yeah.
So many different people that we definitely encourage you to definitely check out on YouTube. Like, we're literally giving you tons of resources on this episode, and I hope that you go and watch it on YouTube. You can just type in their names and check them out for sure. And I'll even put in some of our favorite clips on the description on YouTube as well. So for those who are listening, definitely check out the YouTube link. But right now, would you say that you love who you're becoming?
Yeah. Yeah. As long as I'm being authentically, approaching everything, and I have no ulterior motive, and I do those personal checks. Yeah. Why am I making the decision that I'm making? Is it to lift myself up, or is it to lift others up, right? To edify others.
Right.
So as long as I'm doing that, then absolutely, I love who I'm becoming. But there's always if you're not focused on that road and path of who you're becoming, by default, you will become something you don't want to
And everything you just said, I think really like throws into being clear, right? You have this whole episode, I believe, and speech that you did on being clear.
Yep.
Kind of like dive into that a little bit for people,
Sure.
like why it's so important for you to be clear on your vision.
So clarity in your life or your business, whatever you're working on, it's going to give you the power, because clarity gives you power, power gives you focus, and focus will maximize results. So when you break down clarity, if you don't have clarity, you have chaos.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Chaos is, we live in a very distracted world, right? So the world distractions will keep us from not achieving what we want if we're not absolute clear on where we want to go, right? So if we have chaos and not clarity, then instead of having power, we are disempowered, okay? So how can we truly live that life if we don't have the confidence and competence to get where we want to go? And then focus is if you know where you want to go and you have the energy, passion, and power to do it, then what's going to end up happening is your focus will be laser focused. Yeah. It means that other things that come along, you just know that they don't fit in what your mission is that you're working on. Yeah. Right? Because you don't even see them. You have your blinders on, right? And that's what maximizes the overall results in your life and in business, is just being hyper clear. Yeah. But I'm telling you, what people don't focus on, and you can go find this on the Google, the great and wise Google, because everything on the internet's true. The great and wise Google, you can go out and like find the PDF or the image of like a life category wheel. So usually when I work with people, I always start there. Yeah. And I look at their life category wheel, and it's got these 8 different categories that they need to work within, like health and business, money, romance, family, recreation time, like all these different things in it. Yeah. And then what I have them do is I have them describe their ideal level 10, right? And I see ideal level 10 because what ends up happening is they settle for something less.
Or they're not clear.
Yeah, they're not, because that's why they settle, because they're not clear.
Which is what we did, right? And so using me for an example, like Anthony made me fill out a life balance wheel, and it was like, okay, is this realistic? Or you kind of asked me, what are you doing now to get there? And what are you going to do to get there to be a level 10? And I think when we were filling it out as well, it was like, okay, also grade yourself to see where you are from 1 to 10. And like in my finances or relationship or something, it was like scaling me to something I thought I was actually doing, and then asking me the questions on being clear, okay, am I really doing it? Right? And then it's like, okay, so you're really not there. You're really a 2 instead of a 5. Right. So definitely encourage you to go do that. It's very, very powerful. And it will definitely open up your eyes to what you're doing, what you need to start doing differently. And what else? Like you
have to slow down.
Yeah.
So we're in such a busy, hurried world that people don't take time to slow down. That's where that life category wheel is important. So where people will just, and whenever I do the exercise with them, sometimes I'll get back and they're just like, you can tell they just like chicken scratched it. And I'm like, okay, again, like a little kid, again, do it again. Yeah. And so they have to slow down and be intentional with their time. And so that is actually, again, scheduling like a Saturday or a Sunday, if they're working full time or whatever it may be, or their lunch, and they go peel away from everybody else. They listen to some music or however they can focus. Right. And they go through there. And it's not about trying to accomplish all of them all at once. Yes. It's about being
overwhelming.
Yeah, it needs to be intentional, right? I would rather somebody be intentional with how they're designing their life. Yeah. Right? And only get 3 of them done in an hour, as opposed to trying to get 10 of them done just to have them done. Yeah. Right? Because what ends up happening, because if we're not clear, and you've heard me say this, and this is something I post all the time on the Facebook and the Instagram, is like, if you're not slowing down, you're not intentional to create the design. Yes. Right? So you're either going to live life by design, or you're going to live life by default. Right? So right now we have a ton of people that are living life by default. And so you asked the question earlier about happiness. And usually the people that I find are the most unhappy with their current situation is because they're living life by other people's terms, because they weren't clear on what terms they've created for their own lives. They're allowing other people to design their life for them. Wow. And guess what they have designed for them? Nothing. Not much.
Nothing.
That's right.
Wow. Okay, so the next question was, which you already answered, was basically what do you encourage the listeners to do and where to start? So we encourage you to go to Google and really just type in life balance wheel and literally just kind of outline and be clear and intentional on where you are in your life. Okay, it's definitely important. But as we come to a close, Anthony, you did really good today. I mean, I didn't expect anything less.
Is that like a person saying, "Let's be honest"? Oh, so you're not honest any other time?
No, like I wasn't expecting anything less. But this was my first in-person interview. First of all, that's really exciting. So yeah, we have another one that's gonna be in person, so that's pretty dope. But as we come to a close, definitely, if you could leave listeners and viewers with anything, what do you want them to take away? Just a couple of nuggets. Not food, but
yes, right. Not chicken nuggets. That would be opposite of what I would coach, right?
Yes.
Right. Living an intentional life is very difficult, but it can be done.
Yeah.
Okay. It has to be done by design, and you have to slow down to do it. Okay. So that's nugget 1. Nugget 2 is all the wisdom that you need is available to you. You just have to pay attention to it. Right? You have to slow down. You have to not worry about whatever else everybody is thinking. You have to enroll the right mentors and teachers. Okay? And then the third thing is find somebody that's like-minded, that has already made changes in their lives, that will hold you accountable for what you say you want to do. As a true friend.
And be prepared for that.
Yeah, as a true friend. Don't look for a friend that's going to let you off the hook.
Right.
Because then they're really not your friend. Yep. Yeah. I don't look for people in my life that give me niceties. I look for people in my life that constantly are sharpening me.
Yes.
And it's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. That's why I said, and be prepared for it. When I say it, like, be specific in prayer. Okay. Let me just really preach on that for a second, because I ask God really to surround me with individuals and people that will pour into me and help me become better. And when I tell you that I have that times 10, it is very uncomfortable, but it's such a blessing. And I love the journey of it, because I know that, like, if I can do this now, I can even imagine what I'm going to be like in 3 years. Right? That's right. So I'm super excited. But as we come to a close, so Anthony, I know people are listening from all over the world, but for those who are in Topeka, in case you haven't realized, you guys just opened up a new nutritional coach. Congratulations.
Yep.
How do you feel about it?
Pretty good. It's really cool. So that is going to be, it's going to be Steen Taylor out north, and it's called North Nutrition.
Yeah.
And so leadership is duplication. So Evie and I's dream is always to be able to create a situation with our business that nobody knows that Evie and I are the leaders. And Steen is one of those people that when she's in the same room as we are, people would assume that she is the leader owner, right?
Yeah.
So she's got that power, she's got that focus. And so we're excited that she'll be bringing that good nutrition out north.
Super exciting.
Yeah, and if everything goes well, I think the open date is in June. She's in charge of that. So we're excited for Steen.
Yeah.
She is a great person. She's a great friend, and she truly wants to make the impact with loving and serving others.
I love it. And for those who don't know, those in Houston, all my family friends, like, So Far Nutrition is something I'm a part of, and it has definitely developed me and helped me become who I am today. And I'm such a blessing person to be a part of that. But yeah, you guys definitely have to check it out. I mean, just kind of fly out here and just.
That's right.
Just go check it out.
So if you get somebody to fly from Houston, their first drink is on me.
Definitely. So it's like a tea and shake shop, but we're more than just that.
Yep.
Like we like to say, we're more than just shakes behind the bar.
That's right. It's about community.
It is. It really is. But I want you guys to stay in touch with Anthony, because he's definitely reachable, so follow him at, I think I can do this, Anthony_Blanco coach.
I think it's Anthony Blanco _ coach.
Oh,
I don't know.
I was
Just
close.
Look. Yeah, I don't know. We'll drop it in the however you do the stuff at the end. Like drop the tag.
We'll drop it in the description.
Yes.
Wait. Okay. So it's Anthony Blanco _ coach. I think so. Okay. But if you are listening to the podcast, then it should be in the description below. So definitely check it out. But if you guys have any questions for him, he's definitely available. I truly appreciate all that you are doing for me and the community. And it's a true blessing. And I love you.
Well, I appreciate you too.
So,
you and
he's
Michael.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, you and Michael coming into our lives has been definitely a blessing as well.
Yeah.
And so it's been really cool, and we appreciate your guys' relationship and friendship and mentorship and all that stuff. And we're going to go eat some dinner on Thursday.
We are. I'm hungry.
Yes. And we love you too.
Okay, so at the end of every episode, we always encourage you to share this with someone else. So it's not just for you, but it's for someone else. So if you think that this is serving you as well, I promise you it's going to serve those around you. You are what you become and what you surround yourself with. So we definitely encourage you to share. And of course, follow us on Behind the Spotlight Podcast. You guys, we're going to be back here next Wednesday, but this time probably virtually. It's okay. But we're going to get more in-person interviews coming up. But that's all we have for you guys today. Have a great day.
Bye.